we've seen a little bit of wheat in our time, and it's pretty tough. I know some guys lost some last fall because of stand, but one time we had a plot at Wall, and we had, this was in the spring, it was planted on fallow at that time. We had 80-mile-an-hour winds for about 3-4 hours, and it took off literally about 3 inches off our plot of soil. And we came to the plot that wheat was just flopping in the ground, hanging by a little root. We said, well, this is done. But it rained, it was cool, the stuff made 40 bushel. I mean, it's pretty tough. But yeah, there's a couple of handouts in the back of the car there on fertility. One's on general fertility on wheat. Basically, we're looking at nitrogen, phosphorus, and in some cases sulfur for wheat in this area. And our soil test will give us the idea of, will give us a good recommendation of what to apply depending on our yield goal. And so the other handout in there is on protein, increasing protein if we have a discount at harvest. And some years we do, and some of us may have not put on a lot of N this spring, just thinking that, well, we don't know if this is going to make it or how it's going to turn out. And so we may be a little short. And really, we don't know the discount that's coming, or the premium, if you will, until they start harvesting down south. And if they've got good yields and low protein, then we have a pretty high discount. And if they got poor yields and higher protein, then there's not much of a one. And so for winter wheat now, it's a little too late. Spring wheat, generally, we've got time to make that decision. But generally, if we want to bump up protein, what we do is put on about 10 gallons of 28% mixed with 10 gallons of water. And we apply it right after flowering, when that kernel isn't milky yet, but it's still in that watery stage. And so you've got a week, 10 days usually to get that on if you want to try to bump up protein. And our average is about 3/4 to a point that we bump it up with that 30-gallon application. We can bump it up actually over 2%. We had a couple of sites last year, spring wheat and winter wheat, where we bumped it over 2% with that application.
Do you have to worry about any type of damage or anything with the wheat head, that 28%?
Yeah, that's a good point. Damage with that 28%, as far as burn, that's why we really don't want to apply it at flowering, because we're a little worried about damage there. But typically, if we mix it 1-to-1 with water, we haven't had any problem. And last year, in one of our sites, we went all the way up to 25 gallons and didn't see any problems. But we typically keep it around 10 gallons per acre mixed with 10 gallons of water, and we don't see much for burn at that time. Now again, it helps if you apply it when it's cooler and damp conditions rather than hot and dry and sunny. Yeah, that's the thing on wheat protein. And again, Bob and I put together a spreadsheet on Excel on just what you need for prices and discount and that sort of thing to make it feasible. And most times it comes out you need at least a 50%, 50 cents a point, a discount or premium, however you want to look at it, before it starts becoming feasible. So it's got to be over that before you really start looking at that as an option. But again, we really don't know what that discount is until a little bit later, and a lot of times it's too late for winter wheat. But that's really all I wanted to say. Just make another mention that we are working with a product, ESN. That's poly-coated, really a plastic-coated urea pellet. And a lot of people want to look at that because they can apply it on no-till on the surface and not have to worry about volatilization as much. And so we've been looking at it. Last year was our first year. We've got plots in this year as well on winter wheat. And what we found last year is actually that coating works too well. It doesn't break down, especially if you apply it in the spring, soon enough, and it can limit yields. And so the company would recommend that you apply that in the fall, and so it has time to break down. And what we also found was it does a good job, so good a job of keeping that urea in the pellet and delaying that nitrogen release that you can bump up protein as well later in the season. So that's something you might want to think of, mixing a little of that in with your spring application, and it can increase protein in a number of cases. So again, all that stuff is in the handout. And if you've got questions later, I'll be around if you've got any soil fertility questions. So that's all I've got, Bob.